In this video, I'm going to go over one of the problems from problem set 11, which I just graded. A lot of you lost points on this one, and some of you don't normally lose points. So I wanted to make sure we understood how the function should be working, okay? And some of these examples are kind of forced examples. You wouldn't normally do it that way. But remember, the assignment specifically said to create functions because it's the chapter about functions, okay? So for this one, it's an insurance amount calculator. It basically asks to ask user for value of property, and then it's going to return 80% of that value. Okay. So in this case, I'm going to go ahead and use a global variable. You didn't have to. You wouldn't lose any points on this one. But just so that 80%, if it ever changes, we don't get the magic numbers that show up out of nowhere. So I'm just going to call that, I don't know, percent to ensure. Let's call it that, 0.8. Okay. A lot of you put a lot of statements outside of the main function, and you really shouldn't accept these global variables. Okay. They're here because they're not part of any other function. Okay. So then we should have our main function always. And I didn't take off, but it typically is going to come first of all your functions. Okay. You don't have to worry about the order things load in because you're not going to call main until the very bottom. Okay. At the very end. So at that very end, so the last thing we're going to do down here, we're going to have main. Okay. So we don't have to worry. It's not wrong to put the other functions first, but typically when you're reading a program, you want to see the main function as the first thing. Okay. So for this one, we're going to ask the user the value of the property. Okay. For that, I'm going to say value is equal to, let's do a float input. What is the value of the property? Or just value of the property is fine. Make it a little less wordy. Okay. So we have to ask ourselves, are there any validation loop issues? And I don't think I counted off for validation loops on this one. I'm not sure we've covered those yet. Maybe we have. I know it gets confusing. I'm a little behind in grading. That's throwing me off. But in this case, we do have to worry about if the value is less than or equal to 0, I think it's a problem. So I'm going to say while value is less than or equal to 0. Okay. Print an error. Value must be greater than 0. Okay. Of course, now we know we can also add exceptions, but that wasn't part of this assignment, so we'll talk about that here. Okay. And then just ask this value again. So copy that directly, paste it there. Okay. So at this point, we now have a valid value. Okay. So we want to get the amount of coverage. Okay. And I'm going to do that with my function. Okay. So I'm going to say coverage is equal to, let's call this calc coverage. That works. Sending it value. Okay. So now I have to create this function. So the calc coverage is going to take, let's call it V. It doesn't have to be the same value. Okay. All we're going to do here is return V times our percent to ensure. That's all we have to do. Okay. So a lot of you were printing out your results from the calculation function, and that's never a good idea. Remember what I said, that you should only print in a function if all the function does is print. In this case, the function is doing a calculation thing. And the reason we do that, we may want to use this calculation function somewhere else with a different print statement. So we don't want to force that. Okay. So now that we have that, that should be it, right? Unless I've made a typo of some sort. So remember about where the functions or where the variables have scope. Okay, so value is declared here in main, so it only exists in main. So I have to send the value of value to this calc coverage. I could call it value here as well, but it doesn't matter. I'm just going to call it V. Okay, and then I'm going to return that, which and then it will be the coverage. Okay. So then I'm just going to put a print simple print statement, but you could do more than that. I'm just going to print you need blank coverage of insurance. And you should do a little better job of that. That should be the basic idea. Okay, so let's take a look at this. Make sure I've got it. So if I do $1,000, it should give me $800, and it does. Okay. So again, you definitely want to format the values to be the 0.2f and all that stuff and make it look a little nicer, but that's the idea. So the idea is, again, you ask for the information. What does the main function do? It asks for the information, it calls functions, and it prints out results. All that's in main. Okay. What do the other functions do primarily? They either print something like a menu or they do calculations. Okay. So in this case, you're going to do calculations. Okay. So hopefully if you lost points, you looked at this one and you'll get a better idea of that. Okay. On the other problems, the next one was the stadium seating. And that one asks you to enter how many class A, how many class B, and how many class C. So again, that's a pretty simple program that you may think it doesn't need functions, but since we're in the function chapter and it asks you to do functions, you would have the main program would ask for how many A, how many B, how many C. You would then send that information, all three of those values. Well, let's just do that one. That one's probably worth doing. Let me backtrack on that one. Okay. So this one's going to be the stadium seat cost. Okay. And again, if you want, you can have our global variables here. I don't think you need it, but if you want to avoid magic numbers, you could have here that A, so the cost of A is what, $20, 20.0. B is equal to 15.0, and C is equal to 10.0 to make sure they're floats. Okay. You don't need that. Well, in fact, let's say cost of A. And let me out of there. Cost of B. Cost of C. Okay. Just to clean up things a little bit. Okay. Then we're definitely going to have our main function. Okay. Gonna go ahead and make the call so I don't forget it. Okay. I'm going to ask for how many of each kind of ticket. And again, I'm making this pretty ugly. Okay. So I'm going to say A is equal to int input class A tickets. Copy that. B. C. Okay. I'd want to put some kind of header about that, make it a little more interesting, but I'm just trying to make this not be a 40-hour video. Okay. So now that I have that information, I now want to calculate. Actually, I want to make a call calculate. What's called the cost function. Okay. So I'm going to say that, let's say C for cost. Now I've already got a C. So let's say total cost is equal, and this wants it for each one. Yes. Okay. These all said sold. This was asking how much money was made. So let's go ahead and add a sold here. So total cost is going to be equal to my cost function. I'm going to send it A, B, and C. Okay. So this cost function, I'm going to take a variable A, B, and C. I can reuse those. It doesn't matter. It's going to pass those along. Okay. And then I can do the following. So I can say cost of A is, that's what I call that up there. So let's say this CA is equal to A times cost of A, which from up above is the cost we got for A. Okay. You could do this all in one big equation, just return it all, but I think this time it's a little easier to do it this way. We'll have B and C. Should work the same way. My cursor back. Okay, once we've got that, we should be able to return CA plus CV plus CC. CC. Okay, should be all we do there. So again, as we come down, we're going to set up our global variables here for the 20, 15, and the 10. We're going to ask the user how many tickets were sold of A, B, and C. We're going to make a call over here to the cost function, sending those numbers. We're going to capture that as the total cost. We're going to get the cost here. It's going to return it. And then we can say print results again from main. So print. It's for income generated. So we'll just say income. And you could break it down. This many tickets were sold, whatever you want to do. But we're just going to do it this way. Income generated is total cost. Okay. And assuming I've avoided typos, again, this could be prettier for sure. Okay, so let's make it simple. If I do 1 and 1 and 1, the answer should be 45, and it is. Okay. Again, you'd want to, I mean, it's easy enough to do the format. Total cost. 2F. Those, I think we're okay now. Let's try that. We do other, say there's 123 of those, there's 34 of those, and there's 25 of those. Give us that amount. Okay. So again, the idea is the main function is going to ask for information, make a call to the cost function, print out the results. Okay. So hopefully this has been helpful in deciphering. So when I say that you need to print from main, that's what I mean. Some of you had just weird organization of the code, and that's normal. I mean, this is all new to us, so it makes sense you're doing that. But I just wanted to make sure I put some comments there about this particular problem set to make sure that it makes sense to you. Okay. And then for the paint job estimator, again, you're asking for all the information in main, and then you have a function to do the calculations. Okay. That's all we're doing there. Okay. So if you have questions, make sure you let me know.